Welcome back to SoulBack. This is the R&B podcast. Kyle here. I've got Tom and Ed with me. What is going on, guys?
What's going on, players? How is everybody today?
What's up? What's up?
Man, guys, I'm recording live in Toronto right now, and Ed, to your surprise, or maybe not, they love Drake over here.
You don't say. He only spent 2 weeks of his life running around looking like an idiot on the court. So, congrats to your Raptors. No love to Aubrey.
Can I give a quick shout out? Shout out to anyone
Yes,
who tuned into the last episode and heard us. When I don't remember which episode. It was recently when we were talking about chicken wings and how to eat them. Well, shout out to whoever heard that discussion. I want to let everyone know I sent Ed a picture of me eating chicken wings the other day.
Oh, man.
And Ed, I did a pretty good job, right? Finished the whole thing.
You did a terrible job. I mean, I would rather listen to the Lil Nas X EP than see that disgrace that was your chicken leftovers. Player, it looked like, I don't know if you saw this, Kyle. Imagine just this plump chicken wing full of meat, beautifully brown skin. I mean, the best thing you've ever seen. And like a baby bite out the side of it. That was it.
A baby bite.
A baby bite. There was enough meat on that bone to feed the entire state of Maryland.
Oh my goodness. Jeez. Can we move on?
Well, Ed, how do you feel about people that eat fried chicken but they peel off the skin?
I mean, that's an abomination. If you want baked chicken, get some baked chicken. Don't fry the chicken and then make it baked. You double work for yourself. Now, I will gladly eat your fried chicken skin because I am a monster like that. But why do all that work for no reason? You're throwing your blessings away, literally.
Oh my goodness.
Man. And the most important question of the day, Ed, Tom, didn't you confirm that Ed eats pizza with a fork and knife?
Yeah, I believe that's confirmed. That's an abomination if I've ever heard one.
Look, player, I have explained that is just a sometimes occurrence. If the pizza's like the deep dish when it's like really, really messy, yeah, I'm gonna fork and knife that thing. I don't want that stuff all over my hands.
Well, it's better than Kyle, who eats it from the crust first.
Oh my goodness! What kind of... You need to be arrested, young man.
Some fake news going on here.
You tuned into the right show for that.
Ed, serious question then. What about fried chicken? Do you eat it with a fork and knife as well?
Dog, how are you going to eat fried chicken with a fork and knife?
I don't know.
No, I eat that with my hands. But don't worry, I have 17 napkins by my side because I cannot stand having greasy hands. And with the crumbs all over it, ugh, it's a pet peeve.
Fair enough. Well, guys, not a lot of new music to talk about this week, but man, some exciting albums coming up. Tom, Raheem DeVaughn, his album is dropping, and this is kind of unheard of in R&B. He's dropping 2 albums in less than a year, pretty much.
Yeah, I believe it's been 8 months. That is unheard of, but I love it, man. He's motivated. He's on fire. You know, he's putting out good music. I wish more artists would give it to us like that, but you know, I'm not sure when the last time we got something like that is. Besides Music, who put out a double album, which is nearly unheard of as well. So I like it.
Yeah, I ain't mad.
Yeah,
and, you know, my stance is always is the music good. I don't care if it takes 6 months or 6 years. If you give me a solid project, I'm happy. And I cannot ever think of a bad project that man has put out.
Well, see, I'm just trying to think. If you're putting out 2 consecutive projects in a span of like a year, and it really depends, right? Some artists, like I know Justin Timberlake a couple of years ago, he dropped 2 albums, but the second album was pretty much leftovers from the first one. Tom, do you know if this is leftovers? Because I think he's on a new label right now, right?
It's not leftovers. The man is literally always in the studio. I don't know how closely you follow him, but that guy is always working. One of the hardest working artists. That Timberlake thing was definitely leftovers. I mean, we knew that. And the quality wasn't... you could tell, you know, but I don't expect that to be the case this time around, so stay tuned.
Yeah. And Tom, I think he's signed to Tim Kelly, right?
Our boy, shout out to Tim Kelly. I know he's probably listening, the legendary producer. Yeah, he signed to him. Yep, he produced the whole album, I believe.
Yeah, so that's exciting. And Ed, isn't and give me some perspective from a rap point of view, because I don't think we've really ever seen it in R&B, unless you count like Shantae Moore's albums, because she drops like an album every like 4 months, or an EP or whatever. But didn't DMX drop like 2 albums in 1 year?
Oh yeah.
Man.
Oh yes, that was quite infamous. And the thing about that was 98. He dropped one in the summer and then one around the end of the year. And at that time, that was really unprecedented, because you had an artist who was still super hot and still had an album that had a lot of juice left, and then he bam hits us with another one. So this isn't, a lot of times we see it from artists who will drop consecutive projects who are like building towards something, or in the case of a Justin, it's just kind of like, oh, I've got this album and here's kind of the, I don't want to say scraps, the album was okay, but album stuff that on a traditional album probably would have been left off, and we just cobbled that together to make another project. But this was just, and I think in DMX's case, he was just like, I'm still in the studio, here's a bunch of stuff, I love this stuff, I'm going to make another album because I can. And if the quality is there, you're going to see 2 very successful products. And I really hope that we can get that from Raheem's this time.
Mm-hmm. And Tom, didn't Nas do the same thing, but the result wasn't as good?
Nas. I don't remember he released a double album. Ed, did he do 2 in 1 year?
Yeah, but they were kind of extenuating circumstances. That's when he dropped I Am and Nostradamus, but that was because I Am got super bootlegged, and it was kind of like, there was another reason behind that. He just kind of had to throw some stuff out because the bootleggers went crazy. This was in the late 90s, kids, when the bootleggers would really mess up your stuff. Now it's just like, oh, we called it a leak. Now we don't do that in this era. So it was kind of extenuating circumstances with my man Nasir on that.
Nice. All right. Now, a new song is about to drop. I guess by the time this podcast airs, the song would have already dropped. But H.E.R. is set to drop her debut or official first single off her debut album, Racks, and it features YBN Corday. Who is this, Ed?
Oh, YBN. He's actually one of, if you check out XXL Magazine's freshman covers every year, they kind of do this thing where they highlight the quote-unquote hottest rappers in the game for the coming year. 90% of the time it's industry plants and hot garbage. But he's actually one of the better ones on the list, so he's not necessarily my favorite, but he's kind of like improving over the past few years. So he's kind of won me over on that end. Plus he's hot in the streets, so I can't really fault the kind of label, or even if it was H.E.R.'s decision, to kind of pair that up with kind of an up-and-coming hip-hop artist. All about that visibility.
Excuse me, Kyle. What her debut album? I thought for sure she won a Grammy for her last album. How could it be her debut?
That was a what is that? An extended EP, as Al Varner would call it.
Oh my God, Playa, just put out the album.
Yeah.
All these EPs and mashups, you're driving me nuts.
But Ed, is he a rapper or is he a singing rapper?
He's a, let's see. If you're familiar with Chance the Rapper, then you kind of know what you're getting into. He's mostly rapping, but he does a little off-key warbling at times. But for the most part, I won't throw him in the trash yet. He has enough potential where I'm like, let's keep an eye on him and see how he develops.
Yo, the only thing I know about Chance the Rapper is Tom calls him a fake nice guy.
Yeah.
A fake? No, and Tom and I have talked about that, and I kind of see where he's coming from.
It's all an act, guys. Come on. Everything's an act.
All right, calm down, Tom. But Tom, let's talk about these rap features, because, it's kind of like been an interesting turn of events where, previously it was an R&B artist needed to be on a rap song on the hook for it to do well. And then over the years, it's kind of transformed. And now we're in this weird place because both rappers and R&B singers are both singing at this point. Like Chris Brown dropped a new record with Gunna. And aside from, them having different voices, there's really nothing different. So how do you view the state of R&B in terms of rap features? Because I know Offset is on BJ the Chicago Kid's new song.
Yeah.
Is it necessary to have a rap artist?
Of course, unfortunately you have to in this day and age. You mentioned Elle Varner. She had this song I love, "Don't Wanna Dance," and then they put some guy ASAP Ferg on it, and I'm like, this ruins the song for me. And it's like, that's what you need. Ed, I know you're a big fan. I'm sorry, but
no, please.
That's what you need to get on urban radio. The urban radio is not playing a lot of straight R&B songs, with some exceptions. It's all hip hop. So that's a label orchestrated move. I mean, I wish they would have given more credit and see if she could have done it herself, because I can't see this feature adding anything to the song. She's a talented artist, and can create herself. She doesn't need a rap feature.
I mean, look at the Cardi B Bruno Mars situation from a few years ago, and boy, y'all gonna tear me up for this, and you know where to go. E.T. Bowser on Twitter, yell at me all you want. My block button is itchy. Anyway, we remember when Bruno dropped the Finesse record. And then all of a sudden, he threw Cardi B on it. And I remember, I kid you not, people were saying, Cardi B has this new song with Bruno Mars. There's this new song Cardi B has. So it not only did she hijack the song, you got this whole influx of new fans that are latching on to this Bruno song that was probably like 9 months old at this point. So yes, that's what it's all about. Visibility, reaching a new market, getting different spins on different platforms. It works, and unfortunately it's not going to change anytime soon. Creatively, from a critic standpoint, it's unnecessary. That Bruno song I thought was perfectly fine without her. But, Ferg and Elle Varner, I'll let y'all have that one. But regardless, creatively it doesn't always help, but as a business move, I guess I understand.
Well, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, and I want your opinion, but when I hear these songs, it rarely ever sounds like these artists are in the studio together. It just seems like they slap a hip-hop verse on the song, and it doesn't really, sound organic. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, pretty much. Most of the time, and I'm not one to hate, but you're right. Like, the rappers never really bring anything to the song. Like, I think one of the last favorite R&B hip-hop collaborations that I can think of was Wale and Usher on Matrimony. And of course I don't really listen to hip-hop like you guys do, but that was the last where I don't think they were in the studio together, but it just felt right.
Because they were on topic. That's, I think, what helps. The one thing that drives me nuts about Rick Ross, who everybody loves, is if you listen to his verses, I'm like, did you even listen to the song you're rapping on? It doesn't make any sense. And that just shows that the two artists are not on the same page, and it makes sort of very incohesive piece of work. And I know it doesn't matter if you're a Rick Ross fan, it's just like, ooh, a new Rick Ross song. I'm going to listen to it and pretend it's great. But if you're listening to it as a total piece of work, you got it's like a peanut butter and oatmeal sandwich. You got two different things. What you doing?
Well, watch this. I'm gonna loop her back into this, because you guys remember when she was coming out and the label paid all of these big names to tweet about her and Instagram about her music? Well, why not just keep doing with that? Don't put it. It's basically glorified of what they did then by adding a rapper. You're getting that rapper to shout out the song, but they were putting their verse on it. Just pay these people to, shout out the artist because they're dope. We don't need to hear Cardi B on all of these songs and not add anything.
Well, again, it's good. It's about getting spins on different platforms too. So if you do that, that gives it the longevity and excuse to be on these different stations.
Fair enough.
Plus, I don't think Ed minds Cardi B being on every song anyway, so I think we're good, right, Ed?
You go eat some pizza from the crust first and leave me alone.
All right. Well, speaking of Wale, guys, he has a new song out with Public Enemy #1 Sabrina Claudio. Ed, we'll talk about her in a second. But
wait, hold on.
Tom,
can you remind us why that's Public Enemy #1?
Ed?
Oh boy.
Did I miss something? What happened?
Yeah. How'd you miss this? This was a thing. She got internet canceled.
Oh, right. Okay, I do remember that.
And honestly, this is one of the few times where I was like, okay, you deserve this butt whipping lady. But it was discovered that she had some very unsavory things to say about African Americans and black women back before she got big on Twitter. She was running her mouth. Tweets came back to bite her. How about y'all stop wilding out on Twitter? That's all I ask, instead of calling people names and being ridiculous.
Right.
So she had to lay low after a while.
Tom, I checked out this song and like, well, first of all, the song's like 2 minutes and 10 seconds long, which is a problem in itself. But her part really reminds me of an R&B song from like the '90s. I can't put my finger on it, but it looks like the label is trying to push.
We're starting to get a lot of that, tapping back into that '90s vibe. I'm starting to hear that more and more these days, and I like it. But at the same time, it's just weird that things are moving in that direction.
Well, it's weird, but it's not weird. It just shows, first of all, how old we're getting, because we're at the point where this generation, and it's weird that it happened as late as it did, because my generation, for instance, mid-90s, you heard Puffy sampling all these records from the 60s and 70s that my parents loved. And we knew it growing up because we heard our parents playing this stuff. Now the parents of these kids are playing the records we grew up on, the Mary J's and the 90s sounds. So now that those are being incorporated, there's a whole new artist that's like, did you guys know that there was this group called Escape? And their songs were great, oh my God. So that's where this 90s revival is starting to come from. And as a 90s fan, I ain't mad. But then it is kind of weird when it's the stuff you love gets kind of co-opted.
Right. Now, Tom and Ed, I want to hear this from you guys. Is it wise for the label to continue pushing Sabrina towards, because like you said, Tom, it sounds like a 90s R&B song. Is it wise for them to push her in that lane? Ed, have the people forgiven her yet?
Oh, please. Let me tell you about the internet. They're mad at you until there's something else to be mad at. Then it's all is forgiven. So the Sabrina thing, they had to lay her low because that was hot at the time. And honestly, the outrage in this case, I think, was kind of legit. So but a label wants their investment. So they're like, let's keep her on the low. Let's bring her back. Help her hop on the hottest wave right now, which is that 90s sound. From a strategy standpoint, is now or never. I kind of can't blame them for doing it. And she's talented. So go for it and hope that everybody's mad at somebody else for something else at the moment. I don't know what we're mad about today, but I'm sure it's something. So why not go for it?
Right. Now, Tom, I think you got exciting news to tell the people. Isn't Intro back with a new record?
I'm glad you brought this up, Kyle. Intro is back. Shout out to DJ Soulchild. I think he might have single-handedly found them and brought them back together to put this song out. I'm just kidding. But they're back. Ed, you haven't heard the song, right?
I have not.
Shout out to our Facebook readers and people who chime in on there. It's gotten some mixed reviews. It's definitely a 90s vibe. It's called New York S-Word. I don't like to curse. And it's featuring Mr. Cheeks. It's definitely not the sound they had back in the 90s. I'll say that much. It's definitely a retro influence. It's just, I don't know. You guys could check it out and chime in. It's exciting to have them back. It's actually just two members now. Buddy and Jeff Sanders, I believe are the names. And, yeah, I mean, they're back. We'll see. You know, I kind of had to find this one on my own. It wasn't really presented to us, so it's another one of those groups that's, you know, trying to find their way in this new climate. So, well, I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. I can't wait to hear that. And for some of our younger listeners who may not know, Intro to me is one of the great unsung stories of the 90s. They were a group that vocally were incredible. And it's just a shame. I felt like that, and I was talking to Tom about this a few days ago, I feel like by the end of the decade, we should be talking about them the same way we talk about Dru Hill and 112 and Jagged Edge today. They definitely had that caliber of work, but for whatever reason, again, the 90s was such a competitive landscape, they kind of just got lost in the shovel. And then we lost Kenny in 2001, so that really hurt the lineup as well. But I thought they had a lot of potential, so kind of excited to hear them back trying one more time.
Kyle, can I give another shout out?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is an artist who is still at the top of their game, and they came way before the 90s, and they're still killing it. Do you guys know who I'm talking about?
Who was that?
He just celebrated the #1 single. Oh my goodness, Johnny Gill, the legend.
Yes, Johnny, my boy.
Oh, he just released Soul of a Woman, his new video. He has Tiffany Haddish in the video, which is epic. right there. But then he hit number one and I think it was like only 10 or 12 weeks. I mean, whenever he puts something out, it just seems to flap the charts. It's crazy.
Number one, because those vocals are outstanding. One of the greatest of all time vocally. I said what I said and didn't stutter. And dude just has a very passionate fan base as well. Love me some Johnny. My favorite member of New Edition by far.
Wow, even more so than Raheem DeVaughn?
I said what I said.
Oh, man. I'd have to go with Ralph Tresvant, personally.
Uh-huh.
Well, guys, I'm with the people. I'm going with Ronnie. Guys, since we're on the topic of intro, and Ed, I know you'll like this one. Let's go into our SoulBack track of the day. Can we give it an intro for the song "Come Inside"?
One of my favorites, yes. And you talk about a song that hits a little bit differently when you're grown. Because when I was younger, I was just like, okay, come inside my house. Nope.
Wow. I personally would go with "Let Me Be the One." That's my favorite intro song.
I didn't even know you listened to intro, Tom.
Oh, come on, Kyle. I'm an R&B historian.
Oh, please. But no, I love that song, too.
Yeah. And we got to give a shout-out for them for their rendition of the Stevie Wonder song "Ribbon in the Sky," because that is probably, to me, that and the Jodeci Lately cover, those are my two favorite Stevie Wonder covers.
One of the best covers ever. I wouldn't quite say it's better than Stevie, but it's mighty close.
It's interesting that you brought up that point, though, Ed, back when you were young and not realizing, because we do a lot of these shout-outs on Instagram, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, this album came out. And some people who chime in, some fans were like, oh, wow, this came out when I was 4 and I was listening to it. And that was adult material, like R&B back then. It's like grown, love music. People didn't even know what they were listening to, right?
They certainly didn't. And the difference is, and this was the subtlety of R&B, you could talk about something very, very, very nasty, like Intro's first single, but it wasn't explicit because there was still a sexiness and a sultriness about it. Now today, you go listen to Cousin Chris, he's going to tell you where he put it, where his nose was. It's just like, dude, calm down. And I think that there's a art to songwriting about, you can be sexy and still kind of mask it in expert writing, and that's something that's really been lost today. Because I would rather hear that than some of this stuff y'all boys put out, where it's just like, all right, dog, dial it back a bit.
Hey, Ed, I'm going to need you to stay off the slander on Chris Brown. Tom, I'll tell you what. You're going to, after this podcast, you're going to play some Migos for your little boy Mav, and in 20 years, I guarantee you, he'll still have no idea what's going on.
Oh, boy. I don't even know what's going on, man. Come on.
So there you go.
Real talk.
Oh, man. Yep. And then, along with that, Jay Holiday, I just want to add, he dropped a new single, Feels Right. It has that Jamaican reggae vibe to it, island vibe. So shout out to Jay. He's going to be heading out on tour in August. A couple of new albums set to come out, like I mentioned. Raheem DeVaughn is going to come out. And then we have Chris Brown as well. El Varner comes out in mid-July. And Ed, you'll be excited to know your favorite king of R&B, Jacquees, Round 2. Second album, set to also come out in July. Are you excited?
Oh, I can't wait for this guy. Now, listen, as much as I have a lot of beef with that little child, his first album was okay, and I give credit when it was due. So we're going to see if it's time to put up or shut up with this king talk.
Speaking of king talk, though, Ed, we recently sent you a video of Keith Sweat talking about kings of R&B. I think he was with, like, Pleasure P and one of the Casey brothers of Jagged Edge. What was going on in that video? What was Keith talking about?
Playa, listen. Keith is, when you're a king or you got the crown, sometimes the conversation is like so transcendent that it kind of goes above the heads of the normal listeners. So even though I wasn't quite connecting with what my man was saying, I am confident that it was profound and that he was hitting us with some knowledge. I just wasn't on that level to connect there yet.
That is one
That's
of the
me
worst
saying I don't know
statements
what
I've
dude was talking about.
Oh my goodness. That was amazing, Ed.
Wow. Tom, that sounds kind of cool, hanging out with Keith Sweat, Pleasure P, and the Casey Brothers.
That's one of the most random collection of artists you could find in one grouping. I mean, damn. Where was this?
In a club in Atlanta. I think they were on that Ciroc.
Oh.
It was clearly in a club. I don't know where, but it was clearly in somebody's club. And clearly they were having a good time. I will leave it at that.
Which, Tom, that leads me to my next question. What is Keith Sweat still doing at a club?
I know. Isn't that past his bedtime, Ed?
What? First of all, Keith Sweat invented the club.
What?
Wow.
He needs to put that leather jacket with the fur, put that away, get himself tucked into bed. It's 9 o'clock, man.
Listen, I can't wait until he passes down that coat to me. I will walk up right now into Target. It's 96 degrees down here in Birmingham. I will still wear that leather with the fur around the sides and be the flossingest person in the pharmacy department.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, there you have it. And then some more new music for you guys. Tom, isn't Cassie dropping a new song soon?
You're asking me like I'd have any knowledge of that.
I was
Actually,
like, why would
true.
Tom know this?
Tom actually messaged us with like the most legit question ever. With the straightest face, he wasn't even trying to be funny. He asked, "How does Cassie get paid? What does she do?" Ed?
I said, what does she do for a living these days? That's a legitimate question.
That is exactly what he said. And I mean, I think, and I would certainly be corrected if I'm wrong, doesn't she do some kind of fashion makeup-y type stuff? Like model-y stuff? I've seen her do stuff like that, so... I mean, clearly she's not living off of Puff's checks anymore, so I assume that's what she's doing?
I don't know, guys. We don't care.
Yeah. Moving on. So, guys, I guess we got to grab our popcorn and our soda now because we will be bringing in our special guest.
All right, guys, welcome back to SoulBack. And like I said, every week we try to bring in someone special, someone who has brought soul back. And, Tom, I think we have someone who did just that. Who do we have today, Tom?
Yeah, I'm excited to introduce this week's guest because I spent a lot of time with this guy in SOBs, many nights, putting together shows for Soul Village. Not only did I appreciate that, but just appreciate the fact that he's been such a pioneer in the independent music game in R&B and such a trendsetter there. It's one of the best performers I can honestly say I've seen live and just keeps coming with such great R&B music. Proud to welcome Eric Roberson.
Hey, what's good, guys? Appreciate it.
What's up, man? Thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure.
So, Eric, before we got on the podcast, we were all just talking about your music and the impact that you've had on R&B. And Ed, I'm going to throw it to you because I know you love Eric Roberson. What is it about his music that you love?
Man, well, the whole reason we are here for this podcast is because we're bringing soul back. And my man Erro is just the personification of soul. And the thing that I love about him is that his music has endured. We've seen a lot of artists from the 2000s, and Eric's been doing it even before then, into the 90s, mid-90s, and going forward. We've seen a lot of artists peak, have their run, come down, but he has been consistent, just dropping albums like every other year like clockwork. And each one, the quality has maintained that level of consistency. So when when you're going to hear from my man, you're going to get a solid project, you're going to get real soul. So to me, coming from a fan, as he would say, a music fan first, we appreciate what he does in keeping soul alive.
Man, I truly appreciate it. For me, I guess if there's a level of consistency, it starts from that I'm a fan first, and I'm probably creating really from a void. I'm fortunate that I wake up most days or through my day, I hear ideas, I hear songs, I hear lines, I hear melodies, and I'm constantly chasing those down. I've never got tired of trying to find or unlock that formula, that sometimes is dancing around in my head. And for me, I'm trying to please myself first. I'm trying to give myself a feeling musically, and prayerfully, hopefully, somebody can relate to it when they hear it. So when I hear, something like what Ed just said, man, that's very, very rewarding. It shows that those hours of working on the stuff isn't in vain.
Absolutely. Now, Eric, I got to call you out. You have an album called Mr. Nice Guy, but I was going through your discography. Love of My Life by Case, Merry Go Round by Music, Funny Feelings by 112. Man, I know they call you Mr. Nice Guy, but I was so heartbroken when I was listening to those songs. So we might have to take away Mr. Nice Guy from the title and call you Mr. I don't even know, but man, just talk about those
Mr. Sad Guy.
Mr. Sad Guy.
Yeah.
Oh my, those are some of the saddest songs.
I'm gonna throw this guy out of here.
Well, I mean, really, all that, the funny thing is, I learned a long time ago. Two things. One, I promised myself, and this was probably, I want to say in college, like when I was really going to another level. I remember I was always writing songs, but then hearing Terrence and Darby's Vibrator album that really went nowhere. I mean, that joint went triple wood, right? But the record, it spoke to me, man. I felt the writing was so good on that album, and it just made me just really take writing, to another level. It just made me take it more serious. And I remember saying to myself, whatever happens in my life from this point on, I'm going to write about it, and with no compromise, whether it's going to get me in trouble, whether it's going to make me sound crazy or whatever. If I got hurt, I was going to write about it. If I fell in love, I was going to write about it. If I had an argument, whatever happened, my best days would be turned into a song, and my worst days would be turned into a song. And what's crazy is, I've really made a living off of, a lot of my worst days, Funny Feelings I could tell you the day that happened and exactly what I was feeling and how let down I was that day. And I think the adrenaline of being so upset and so hurt, allowed me to craft a song on guitar. That was the first guitar song I ever wrote. I picked my dad's guitar up. Now, mind you, I watched my dad play guitar my entire life. So, it wasn't just like I just walked past a guitar at a music store, just picked it up, started playing. But but that song was all emotion, So, for me, a lot of times I started realizing that when people hear a sad song, they also realize that they're not alone,
Right.
It's crazy. I just got a message from a guy on Instagram that his wife passed on my birthday last year, which was crazy, and he wrote to just say how his life is pretty tough right now, and his kids are pulling him through, and in his family, and he said my song Still, has really helped him out a lot, and Still it was a song about losing a loved one, but when I made the video, I decided to make the video the guy losing his wife to cancer, and I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me to share how much that song has helped. And it's crazy because the song doesn't end in a positive note. The song just shows this life that a lot of people are living. And those people just need to know at a moment when they see it that they're not alone, that someone else is feeling that way. When you really deal with something traumatic, a lot of times you feel like, your life is a movie and you're just the lead character. You're the only person dealing with this. And I think when you put a sad song out, a lot of times, that girl who's got her heart broken, or that guy who's got his heart broken, or somebody who's lost someone real close to them, they hear those songs and they go, "Wow, I'm not alone." And it's brought a lot of my success from those kind of songs, but it's also been very rewarding because it's been able to help a lot of people that I didn't think I would be able to help.
Oh, that's very deep, man. I mean, definitely we can feel it when we listen to those type of songs. So, we receive that that message as well.
Cool.
What I want to touch on next, this feels so much like a love fest, but we really admire you as an artist, Eric. And one of the things I admire most is how fearlessly you approach your career with such confidence. I mean, I just remember hearing this story you used to tell about how you used to show up to shows early on in your career, but not even enough gas money, and you'd need to earned that money at that show by selling CDs to even get home. I thought that was such a cool thing to hear. And then how you kind of shunned major labels, went the indie route. But mostly, I mean, how you have this new album out that you're releasing exclusively to your biggest fans, those who back you on your site, who will, you know, pay a few dollars to support you, and they get it first, and they get to hear it exclusively. So talk about how you know, that approach a bit.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, even going back to, you know, my early days of doing independent stuff, of like going in and, you know, like I said, selling CDs to get home, you know, a lot of stuff, it goes back to one, I had to touch back on Howard, where one of the things I learned back then was, you know, if you want to do something, you got to go into it full steam. I think I learned that from my teachers, who a lot of my professors were, you know, still, you know, musicians in the industry or actors in the industry. And, you know, so when I graduated college, it wasn't like I was going to wait tables and try to do music on the side. It was like either sink or swim. And I was doing theater at the time. When I first graduated, I was really doing musical theater, so I was, you know, auditioning and doing plays and trying to make it happen. And, you know, there was a lot of, you know, as soon as the play was over, you're unemployed to the next one. And the music industry was the same way. It's, you know, as a songwriter, I had a lot of success, but you know, there was really, really successful months followed by really, really quiet months. You know, I might make a ton of money one year, and the following year I might not make anything, and that's just how the music business is. But I knew I needed to be close to it. So if I could write for somebody else, or if I could sing background on somebody's tour or whatever. So my way of thinking when it came to putting an album out was the same way. It was like, okay, you know, we got some shows here in New York and New Jersey, but how do you get to Chicago? How do you get to Columbus, Ohio? How do you get to, you know, Oakland, California? And a lot of it was finding these venues who or somebody who might have an event that already had people there. I can't just automatically go, hey, I'm Eric Roberson, and you got to pay me such and such. So how do you do it? Hey, if I come to your event and you like it, next time will you pay me? Was really how I built everything. And meeting musicians. I would go to Cleveland and meet musicians. I'll go to Columbus, Ohio, meet musicians, and those guys would play for me. I didn't have a band at the time. So for me, it was like, just, it's going to work because you got to figure it out. And in no way was I going to allow myself to sit at home and not let it happen. You know, if I was going to fail, I was going to fail where the answer was at, you know.
Right.
And even, you know, being a songwriter, I think if I didn't get in the business as a songwriter and work on so many albums that didn't come out, sure, you know, you see the Music Soul Childs and the Jill Scotts and the Vivian Greens, the Carl Thomases, the Case, you know, all those, the Charlie Wilsons. But for every album I worked on that came out and you saw those songs, there was an album that didn't come out. And that artist, I watched them go back home, and I watched those dreams get crushed, and they'll go back to getting a 9 to 5. And sure, they might have found happiness and found some success in other ways, but I remember that taste of that, like, wow, what happened to that music, and or what the world was robbed of. Just name your favorite artist, and just imagine if that album never came out, how much you would miss. And that happened all the time in the music business, just because a lot of times it was too dope or too ahead of its time for the label to understand. And that happened. I mean, we could talk all night just about those situations. People will say, this guy's going to change music, or that girl's going to be the next Erykah Badu, or such or whatever. And they just never came out. And you go like, God. So for me, you know, I got to a point in my life, you know, I was getting my upper 20s, and I was like, you know, the label stuff wasn't working out. The songwriting was cool, but I had all these personal songs I wasn't willing to sell. And I was like, man, I'm just willing to let it go. Like, I'm just willing to not stop doing it. I'm just willing to let anybody have it, whoever wanted it. And that's really how it started. And then the fans who eventually gravitated to those music, they challenged me to do more. And then from that point, I had to kind of learn business, you know. But I can't say there was a fearlessness. I think I just was too dumb to stop, you know. I was like, you know, it's like it got to work, you know. It has to work. Tom, I don't know if I ever told you how SOBs really started, how Soul Village even started.
Yeah.
at this point I was a really successful songwriter. I was trying to do shows, and everybody said, well, the Roots and everybody is performing at SOBs. If you want to do a show, you should do it at SOBs. And me and my manager at the time was calling, and they wouldn't book me. They were like, okay, we don't know who you are and this and that, and can we just try a show? No, and just constant calls. And then one day we called and said, well, how much does your venue cost? And they said, it's going to cost this. And I was like, well, what day do you have open? And I don't even think it was a Friday. I think it was like a Wednesday or something. Mm-hmm. And we booked SOBs ourselves. If you're not going to book me, I'm going to buy your place and I'm going to do my own show. And the show was so successful that from that point on, they started booking me. And then eventually, probably a year or two after that, they said, are there other artists like you, that don't really have a platform? And I was like, definitely. I was like, and that's how Soul Village started, but it's just more of like not allowing that no. The no doesn't exist. Or shall I say that get to the no faster so you can find the yeses. That's probably more important. Yeah.
Amazing. And you've had so much success as an independent artist. Ed, I want to loop you in now because, on this podcast, we talk about, we talk to so many independent artists, many R&B artists who were on majors. They went indie, and they've had mixed results, But Ed, from your perspective, what is the biggest shortcoming that independent artists make when they try to, get themselves out there?
Man, and I know Erro can speak to this on a different level. To me, I feel like the struggles that I see from a reviewer standpoint as a critic that we see from independent artists is that they come on, they get the opportunity to have their voice, and a lot of these artists sometimes are bringing something new to the table. And once they start getting that shine, whether it's their fault or the fault of a label, whomever, I feel like that thing that made them special, that made them them, they start tinkering with that sound to sound like the mainstream or whatever's hot in the streets. They lose that kind of individuality that they had before, and that's where things start getting lost creatively. Erro, in your mind, what do you think is kind of right now the biggest struggle for independent artists coming up, and any advice you can give them to maintain that individuality so they can stand out in the marketplace?
Well, one part, and I don't know if this is the exact answer, but this is one thing that I learned, and it was an observation I watched. The years of watching Soul Village, and Tom, you maybe even can relate to this. I can't tell you how many artists I remember. First of all, this is a show that we did. We would showcase 3 to 6 acts a month, and we did it for close to 20 years. And so just imagine how many artists we got a chance to watch. I can't tell you how many times an artist would come off the street and do sound check. They might still have their book bag on or a baseball cap on or whatever, and they will blow you away at sound check. Just, oh my God, they're going to kill tonight. And then they go downstairs in the dressing room and they take off what they were comfortable in and they put on something that they or someone thinks they should be wearing in front of the crowd. And they come on stage with a different persona than who they were when they just naturally just came off the street and walked on stage and did sound check. And it just didn't work. The show wasn't as good. And I remember having that show. I remember years and years before my first album or anything. I remember doing a show at SOBs. I think it was like my third show at SOBs, and it was a bad show. I think I got this motorcycle jacket somebody gave me, and some Scully I was wearing all tilted to the side, and I was trying to do all this stuff. And I remember all my friends really saying like that show wasn't good. And from that moment on, it was like I'd rather be the guy who got on stage with a T-shirt on, and you said, "Yo, that guy killed. I wish he didn't wear a T-shirt, but he killed," rather than, "Yo, that dude's outfit was amazing. And his show was all right," And so, it's a fine balance because sure that's one part, right? But then the one thing about R&B and soul music is that as you live, you change, and as you change, your music changes, and there needs to be kind of like one foot in and one foot out. You kind of have to know what your demographic is and what they're looking for out of your music, as well as, the changes that you go through. Whereas, like, say, let's take a Joe, perfect example. Joe has grown great through his career, and he's really applied certain changes, but there hasn't been much major changes from, say, Joe's first album to Joe's most recent work. Maybe a maturity for the most part, right? But if you look at like an Erykah Badu, there's been a drastic change from the first album to the more recent stuff. You look at D'Angelo, even look at Anthony Hamilton. It's like when you go to Africa and come home, you're not going to be the same person. When you fall in love with somebody, you're not going to be the same person. And a lot of times your music changes. And I've been fortunate that I feel like my music has changed several times, but maybe not to the point to where you can alienate, a core fan base. If anything, for me, we're talking about we're at 15 albums in 19 years, right? So just realistically, it's hard to keep that person who was there at album number 1. It's hard to keep their attention at album number 15. We still have sold out shows. It's just different people. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's kind of what I relate to is I still play Stevie Wonder's songs in the key of life. I still play Talking Book. But they got to a point where I wasn't really buying Stevie's records. Not saying that Stevie wasn't incredible, nor was he not putting out incredible music, but my relationship with his music peaked. And that's something that you kind of just have to relate to. And mind you, the same way, you'll meet a lot of young fans, let's say of Michael Jackson, and they'll be like, oh, Dangerous. They'll be talking Dangerous, and they won't even talk about Thriller. You're like, what about Thriller? You're like, nah, because they don't even know about it. They came in at a different point. So, I think to a degree, some artists have to be satisfied with that when you're putting out a lot of work. But the goal is that you got to make sure that you're not trying to please others. If you heard something in your spirit and you followed it, sink or swim, it's a success. But if you're like clout chasing, if somebody else did something, you're like, oh, that's what works now, let me try to do that. That's not really the right formula for success, and it's not going to carry you for long.
Yeah. Well, Erro, let me challenge you on this a little bit, because you brought up some really great points that we talk about here a lot on the podcast. And it's funny you mentioned MJ's catalog, because not long ago I ranked his discography, and there were a lot of fans who I think I had Dangerous at like number 3 or 4, and they were like, oh, you crazy, that's the best one. And I'm like, what happened to Thriller and Off the Wall? No. Because as fans, you gravitate toward your entry point. So if your first MJ album was Dangerous, obviously that's going to be your best. If your first Erro album is Music Fan First, that's going to be your favorite. But what we've seen over the years with artists, you mentioned some great examples with a Joe, or even yourself, people who have evolved over time, but still stuck to their core sound. But there have been other artists, I ain't going to name no names, I'm going to be good tonight, Tom. So there have been some who have
I want you to name names.
I can go all night. But there's some who have started off at one sound, and then, boom, EDM is hot, let me hop here. Boom, trap is hot, let me drop here. And you got drastic sounds, and you got a fan base that's almost angry because it's like, this isn't what we signed up for. So how do we balance between, and I talk about this a lot too, fans have to let artists grow and experiment and do some other things. How do we balance between the growth and the clout chasing? Because that's what we're seeing in R&B right now, and it's causing that division among fans, and it's hurting some of our legendary artists. Yeah.
Well, the one thing I don't know is, like, for those who are clout chasing, it's one thing is, if they're still performing, if they're still like loving what they're doing, or if there's still success to it. Let's say, you change your sound, and you may have alienated your original fan base, but yet gain this whole new fan base. And let's say they're doing like sold out shows. I don't know if that's necessarily, it may not be for the betterment of a certain genre of music, but that may not be the worst thing for that particular artist. And the only reason I say that is from an inside, I can tell you I know a lot of people who have had major success and are not happy. And that was a big thing about me going into independent music, because I saw, okay, the plaques, the success, the money, if you had to sing a song for the rest of your life that you don't like, God, they're miserable. Yeah. They're miserable. And so for me, it was like, the blessing thing of being an independent artist is I don't have to compromise. It's like you gotta realize what you want and where you're at with it. What's your real goal? Now, if your real goal is to make sure that you got 3 Bentleys in the driveway, then you might have to just do whatever you need to do to keep that going. And that might also explain why, you're doing, different types of music that made your fan base kind of scratching their head, like, why is he doing that? But it also might just be that you got a true love for music, and you were introduced as this particular person, right? That your opportunity came as an R&B artist. But if someone ever looked at your phone is full of like gangster rap. You know what I mean? And it's like, wow, I can tell you plenty of soul artists that if I look at their phone has no soul music in it. And it doesn't mean like that they're not fans of soul music. It's like, okay, it's what they do, so they kind of need a different pull. My catalog, my CD collection and my album collection is probably just as much rock and roll in there as it is soul music. But it's just because I'm a fan of all kinds of music, or that I look for soul music in all forms of music. Like when I listen to classical, if there's a certain kind of classical music that I listen to, there's a certain kind of country music that I listen to because I'm listening for that thing that kind of has soul music. And that goes the same thing for R&B. Like I'm not really a fan of just every R&B. It's a certain type of R&B that has an element of soul in it that really draws me, and that's like my favorite type of music. But I think it goes down to really seeing what that artist is doing. Now, when we get into like the betterment of R&B, keeping a genre alive, or keeping it, sure, a lot jumping like that is not really helpful. But I think there's plenty of artists that are keeping a genre alive. I think we have to just constantly always keep looking, keep feeding those artists. But I think it goes back to nowadays, man. I think it might be clout changing, but a lot of times it might just be that person always had an interest in that. And I don't know how much an industry accepts change too. Like case in point, Missy Elliott introduced herself as a silly artist. She had a hefty bag blown up as a balloon in a video, right? So it wasn't odd for her to 3 albums, 4 albums later to do something weird. Now, if Tweet came out the way she did and as amazing she was, 3 albums later comes out in a balloon bag, you're like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. But she might have always been just as silly as Missy. You know what I mean? It's just how you introduce yourself is important, how you introduce yourself, because for the most part, people are going to want you to be in that lane. That they don't want too drastic of a change. So it's probably more of a statement that you need to be prepared when you introduce yourself of who you are, so that people can grow with you. But everybody's an individual, so it's a little bit of both. I don't know if everybody's making the same mistake. I think it's a different story for each artist.
Right. Now, Eric, I got to ask you this. We talk about this a lot on the podcast, just what the definition of R&B is in 2019. Ed and I were just talking about this yesterday. We read that Quavo from the Migos, he announced that he wants to make an R&B album. And to us, who grew up listening to 90s and 2000s R&B, we're like, he doesn't make R&B. But you ask some of these kids that listen to music nowadays, a guy that's auto-tuning with melody, they consider that R&B. So is it even possible to convince the youth that isn't R&B? Like, what's the balance there?
I think it goes back to, I remember like when Guy came out, and like it sure was New Jack Swing, but at the end they was still R&B, right? And there was some drastic changes. So I personally wrestle with not being, that guy, that guy going, wait, what y'all doing ain't real music, or that, it's like I try to understand, you know, what everybody's doing, what everybody's feeling, you know. But yeah, it is a change to a degree, and at the same time, there's still artists doing actual R&B. You know, first of all, R&B is rhythm and blues, and yeah, Quavo or just even most R&B today isn't rhythm and blues, or at least doesn't have the blues in it. You know, and rhythm and blues, if you really look back to the origin of it, is like really the undertone of rock music. Little Richard, you know, Chuck Berry. So it's always transformed. It's always transformed when you look at it. But there's this undertone of like soul and sadness and African rhythms, and like, you know, that's the cores of R&B, and it could kind of evolve. I just don't know if it's evolving to the level of like Quavo. You know what I mean? I think that might be like really taking a distance. But what I will tell you is that I remember listening to Kendrick Lamar at one point, like his first album, and going, "That's a ballad. That's a love ballad." Like, where, you know, and what I would say is that an artist, Quavo probably 15 years ago might have been a singer, really might have been. And Kendrick Lamar, same way. You have a lot of people with actual, you could tell that they actually have some level of vocal understanding, and it's just in the climate of today, they're more leaning towards rap music, but they're still rhyming over ballads. Like, they're rhyming over, you know, Kendrick Lamar went on tour with a saxophone player on his first album. And it's like, so what happens is they're still feeding live instrumentation. They're still feeding some level of musicality. But what happens is that Tevin Campbell is being wiped off the slate. You know, it's almost like the climate change, like the ice is melting. Where are the polar bears going? Like, the Tevin Campbells of today are the polar bears. And they're like moving, they're like standing on this little piece of ice, you know what I mean? But it's not saying that it's gone. It's just evolving and changing, and I think with all things, as much as when we think things go too far, here comes this artist, and it pulls it back to neutral. And I think that was the same thing. Tony did that 30 years ago. D'Angelo did that 25 years ago. You know, it's constantly the Anthony Hamilton, the Hamiltons, they're pulling it back. You know, so, you know, I before it goes too far, I think someone always comes back and places the flag back for R&B and goes, "Here, we're here," and it pulls it back. Go, "Oh, that's how it sounds." But it's had its years of veering off. You know, it's had its years of. I think people might have said the same thing about Jodeci, as crazy as that might sound now looking back, or the same thing about Guy, or the same thing about Horace Brown, you know, or really Father MC when you stop and think about it, you know, like, though he was rhyming, it was R&B music he was rhyming over, you know, so people are going like, that's not R&B, you know, what is that? It's pulling away the culture, and what happened was it was hurting the Freddie Jacksons, it was hurting the Phil Perrys, you know, it was hurting the Peebo Brysons and the James Ingrams. They became the polar bears of that, you know, that time of that real estate. But somebody always puts a flagship back in, and it kind of pulls it back.
Well, Eric, we're just about out of time. I just want to share one last story with you, because this is something I always think about. It involves a performance I was at of yours. This was at the Essence Music Festival a few years ago when you were performing, and this impacted me big time. I've shared the story with the guys, but it was in the convention center, right? They had you performing there, you know, the day people could come in the convention center before the show at night and go to different vendors and see some live performances and meet and greets and such. But they had you performing on the main stage, right? You know, doing an amazing performance as always. And then 2 booths away, I believe it was like a McDonald's or something booth, they had a DJ, and he was just playing some trendy hip-hop. And, man, when I tell you it was so packed for that trendy booth, I was just so upset, because two booths away was you putting on this dope performance, and all these people were missing out because they were just trying to get down to the younger, trendier stuff. It bothered me a lot, and I still think about it. So I don't even know how you think about something like that.
You know, I'm trying to remember that, but you know, for me, you rock out for whoever you have. You know, at the end of the day, you know, I know a lot of performers who look at performances as almost like a boxing match, like you win some and you lose some, right? And I've never really understood that. Like to me, each one is like a blessing opportunity, whether it's 4 people, 400, or 4,000. I've had the opportunity to perform in front of all numbers, right? But you got to give the same thing for whoever you're performing for, and you got to also realize that you're blessed and fortunate. You know, if it you know, sometimes you're going to not have great sound, or you know, the production, or just people not really appreciating what you're doing, and that's pretty tough. But you know, for me, I really work really hard on how I perceive things. And the one thing that, you know, my first show in D.C. was 30 people, and now we do 1,000 people now. You know, we're doing the Kennedy Center later this month, and it's, you know, when I look at Atlanta, you know, my first show was Apache Cafe. It might have hold 70 people, and now we do Center Stage that holds 1,500 people, or we do 3-4 nights at City Winery, you know, and I look at those cities. I look at London now, and even when we do London, like when we do a European tour, you know, we'll do London, and it might be 1,000 people at that show in London, and the very next day, you know, we'll do Manchester, and it'll be, you know, 150 people. And you got to give them the same show, the same energy, the same love. And one, because that 150 room eventually might be 1,000 room too. You know, I saw the growth. I saw how fortunate and blessed I am. So, you know, even if it's, you know, you're in a, you know, convention hall and next door is going crazy, and you have a certain amount, you got to be really appreciative of those who came, because, yo, you know what? You earn those people. And I'd rather have people in front of me that I earned than people that I bought. Or people who were shoved into a room and like force-fed, you know, and really being an independent artist and not really having the radio play and not really having, you know, magazines or that really kind of amplified. I've never had the monster label budget of you know, $300,000 radio budget or nothing like that. So what we did was we went to towns and we worked in front of small crowds and we earned them, and we got to be bigger crowds. And you know, when I look back now at the fan base, I'm appreciative that we had the opportunity to earn them. So, and for me, none of that really bothered me, but I can see how someone can be dejected. But, you know, we battle-tested, man. We the cockroaches of the industry. You know what I mean? Like, that convention hall, when I look at something like that's nothing, because, you know, for years we show up in venues and no one knew the music. No one knew who we were, and we had to, you know, we had to teach the songs. We weren't singing Marvin Gaye songs and Barry White songs. No, we were singing our original material, and it's like sink or swim. We got to try to earn these people and come back, and you know, and it worked, man. So for me, it's about perception, man, and it's understanding what your purpose is. And realizing the path. Like even in this podcast, you know, it's growing, and before you know it, you know, you might have a write-up in the Rolling Stone. It's like, wow, you just never know when that happens. You just got to keep rolling your sleeve up and doing what you love, and eventually the rewards start paying off.
That's an amazing outlook, man. We can really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So Eric, we're out of time. Before you go, do you mind just letting everyone know where they can check out this new music you have out?
Yes, yeah. So we have this interesting thing called The Process. It's a music community group that we have, and it's on a Patreon page. And what it is people subscribe to follow me in the studio. Right now we're a little under 500 people, and we do songwriting workshops, we do Q&As, and it's really what it is. Everyone gets a copy of every idea and every song I have as fast as I make it. So you get a chance to watch the process from an idea I have to who I shopped it to when we brought other musicians in to play on it, and to where we, you know, did live strings on it or got it mixed or landed on a project. And I did an album for that group right now, and the album's called L&S. They actually A&R'd the album. They picked what songs made the album, and they helped with the album cover. They voted which album cover. I mean, they really A&R'd to a full level. And eventually we'll release the album publicly, but right now we're just having fun keeping it internally because, I mean, it's really a group of music lovers, and I would say even if someone, you know, if you love music, it's $5 a month. Just take a peek. You know what I mean? It's over 100 songs in there right now, and
wow.
you can leave at any time. You know, it's just in there, and we're just having a good time. And it's just really, in a way, for me, it was like we're in an industry now where people don't know who did what. There's really no credits to read. Why not show them everything? You know, why not give you an inside peek at like how we create? So that's where the new album is at right now. It's at patreon.com/Eric Roberson. But you can just go to my website, ericrobersonmusic.com, and all you have to do is join the process, and all the stuff is there.
That's awesome, man. Hey, Eric, thank you so much once again for joining us. You've been an amazing guest, shared so much insight. We really enjoyed it.
I appreciate it, man. I had a great time. Let me know when we're doing it again.
Sounds good, man. I'll talk to you soon.
And guys, that was Eric Roberson on the podcast. Man, I love talking to that guy. He's such a smart guy, and he knows the independent route. He knows R&B.
And he's such a humble dude as well. With somebody who's been in the game as long as he's been and had the success that he's had, he could definitely be a little cockier about it. But he's always been humble and always been true to the art form. So much respect to my man, Erro.
Yep, absolutely. Are you guys ready now for the Playa Please Awards?
Always.
So earlier we talked about Sabrina Claudio and whether people have forgiven her for her racist comments or her tweets from way back in the day. Now, Ed, one of your favorite artists, Miley Cyrus, made a racist comment towards hip-hop in general. And I know at times you have called her a culture vulture. Well,
Yep.
she dropped her new album, or she's set to drop her new album soon, and she apologized for those comments, and I think she's like now back to making hip-hop.
Well, first of all, let me clean this up a little bit and clarify why she gets a huge Playa Please Award this week. First of all, the EP that she dropped has already been released, and the EP did not quite do as well as she expected. For a little bit of background for those who missed, we all remember Twerking Stage Miley, when white America suddenly thought that she invented twerking, even though the freaking Yin Yang twins have been twerking since 1999. But whatever. So she, at the time, decided to throw on her hip-hop hat and get her hip-hop beats and throw on her fake grill and play rapper and sell some records off of that. Afterwards, she decided that she, quote-unquote, had grown up and grown out of hip-hop and wasn't going to do it anymore. To me, people, that is the textbook definition of appropriation. You took a culture, you threw it on like a costume, and we got tired of playing with it. You threw it in the trash. So then she put out Some Time Has Passed. Career, music-wise, didn't really do as much as it did in the twerking stage. So this new EP was a return to that sound. And people like me were pretty pissed off because she's going back in her closet to play rapper again. So this EP came out, and it wasn't, I've listened to some of it, it wasn't as hip-hop inspired as she made it sound, just kind of lightly done. But EP didn't do nothing. So then we get the big apology about how I was misgiven in the past and I may have hurt some feelings and blah, blah, blah. Player, where was that apology before then? You've had years of this criticism, but now you want to play nice after the thing goes double wood? I'm not here for it.
All right. Next player, please. Tom, I know you haven't had KFC in a while, right? When was the last time you had KFC?
Oh, man.
Was that KFC you ate the other day?
No, I had Chick-fil-A the other day.
Oh.
KFC, it's been probably over a decade, I'd say.
Well, the Playa Please is for KFC's new item, which might intrigue you, actually, Tom. It is called a Cheetos chicken sandwich.
Cheetos?
From the looks of it, yeah, it looks like it's just like bread, deep fried chicken breast, and Cheetos chips on top of it.
Yeah, I saw it. It looks like hot garbage.
Will you be eating it, Tom?
It's not going to get me back to KFC, I'll tell you that much.
I mean, Playa,
Damn.
the sandwich literally looks like somebody threw some Cheetos and a sandwich in the trash, and somebody pulled it all out, and it was just all together. Like, that's how it looks.
Interesting.
Yeah, this reminds me back in elementary school when people would put like chips in their sandwich.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah. And Ed, the last Playa Please, which will also be part of your love letters coming up, one of your favorite rappers of all time, Nelly. Did you see his tweet that he made about Obama?
Oh, no, I did not see this. What did this dude say?
So Nelly posed a question to the people of social media. How would you feel if your girl slept with Obama? And then he followed up with, I thought about this for 36 hours and I realized it wouldn't be so bad. I mean, she would be sleeping with the most famous black person ever.
This actually happened?
What?
This happened.
Oh my God.
Well, see, I told y'all. See, this is why you always need to listen to me. I told y'all in 1999 or 2000, whatever that weird song he had that came out, I was like, this dude is a problem. And everybody rolled the wave, and oh, Nelly's the greatest thing ever. It might take me 20 years, but I'm going to prove myself right. He's a weirdo. Who thinks about this for 30-something hours?
The interesting thing is, like, back when he first came out, and I was, believe it or not, guys, when I was in high school, I was a big Nelly fan. I'll admit right here, live on the SoulBack podcast. However,
Terrible.
That was a good thing before social media. Some of these artists couldn't make a fool of themselves in public because they, the label restricted them. So now this is what we get. We see who they really are.
And it only
but have
there's
you
old
guys
heads
seen,
like me that have to remember these kind of misgivings of the 90s.
Kyle, have you looked at Jaheem's Instagram page?
Yes, I have, and the guy is going off on it.
For starters, not even the rants. The guy wears a crown and like I don't even know what the heck he's wearing, but he wears like a crown in everyday public around the mall and to the stores. I don't know what's going on.
Tom, he's also vegan now, which might explain a lot.
Why does that explain anything?
It explains a lot. If you eat the fried chicken skins, I think the blood will flow better in your brain, and you won't be rolling around with a Burger King crown in public.
And that seems like something you do.
Absolutely not. I would wear a furry jacket with leather in 90-degree weather, but I'm not wearing a Burger King crown. I do have a little bit of self-respect. Ugh.
What better to compliment your puffy jacket with fur than a Burger King crown?
Why am I on this podcast? I ask myself this every week.
But yeah, Tom, Jacquees' Instagram, he's been telling people don't go to this show because I won't be there. Even though he's billed as like the top act on the show, it looks like he's canceling shows before the date even comes. He's announcing to his fans, "Don't go, get your refund." That's kind of crazy.
I don't know what's happening. It's sad all around. I hate to see him vent and rant like that because it can't be good to his fans to read that. Who knows what he's going through, but man, Jaheem, I hope it works out for you. Now, let's get some new music.
Yep. Shout outs to Jaheem. So, Ed, back to Nelly. I think I have figured out what went wrong with Nelly.
Oh, well, I'm sure I got a list, so please tell me.
Doesn't he have a song called Pimp Juice?
Yep.
So that's probably what he was sipping on when he made that tweet. He was sipping on that Pimp Juice.
Listen, the Pimp Juice is probably one of the 2 or 3 songs I can actually tolerate from him. So I won't diss the Pimp Juice, but he's definitely sipping on something in the middle of the night to come up with that mess.
Let me ask you a question, Ed. I don't think you drink, right?
Nope.
So when you're out on the town with your pimp cup, what are you sipping on in there?
I probably have some mixture of lemonade in there, some sparkling Sprite. I don't try to get too crazy.
Ed, you actually have a pimp cup?
I don't, but I should.
Oh my God, the South.
This
is how they do in the South. People walk around with cups full of seltzer and ginger ale.
Trust me, down here, there ain't no seltzer. There is no seltzer and ginger ale in them cups down here. I'll tell you that, player. Except probably mine.
Yeah, let's put some respect on the ginger ale, please.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah, I think Ed's probably using like a Costco red cup. Yeah, I don't think he's at pimp cup status
Oh,
yet.
Mike.
Costco red cup. Oh my! At least let me get the blue cup. Something different. I got to stand out with it.
Yeah. Guys, I think that's it for this week's podcast. Shout out to Eric Roberson for joining us. Ed, I'm expecting you to do a whole love letters on Nelly's tweet. But what else is going on with SoulandStereo.com aside from that?
Oh, gee. Speaking of love letters, we do have a new edition of Love Letters up. Talking. It was actually an interesting conversation about interracial relationships and double standards. Go check that one out. Also, by the time this goes up, I will have my annual 20 questions of the BET Awards. Look, players, I ask you to read it because if I had to stay up 5 hours and watch that mess of a show, you're going to read every word of that, or at least open the page and give me the page view. So, yes, go to soulandstereo.com, check out the recap of the BET Awards because give my life some sort of meaning.
And Tom, what's going on with IGotSoul.com?
Not much. I just realized I haven't done an in-person interview since Raheem's last album in September. Now that I have a child at home, Maverick, I gotta be home with the wife to take care of this child. So Kyle, you're the one holding it down, man. You got any interviews coming up?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be interviewing Nicole Buss. She's opening up for Common on his tour, so I'll probably go pick that up. Maybe get Common as well, because that's how we do. But, yeah, nothing really else going on. But I am happy to announce, I talked about Jay Holiday's new single earlier. We partnered up with Jay Holiday's team. He's going on a mini tour, 10 dates. It actually starts on in Birmingham. I'm going to be giving out free tickets to each one of those shows. So listen to the podcast, and we'll do some contests on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're going to give away some tickets and maybe even try to get a meet and greet. Ed, I'm going to get you to meet Jay Holiday. Don't make him mad or he might yell at you, but that might actually be pretty funny too.
That actually would be pretty hilarious.
First he'll park your car, then he'll yell at you.
Yes. Oh my God.
So that seems to be it for me. I do have a couple more interviews to do probably in August. I'm actually, like I said, I'm in Toronto right now, and Tweet is actually performing tonight at the parade show. I might go catch that, but probably not because it's too wild over there. But guys, I think that's it for this week.
All right,
man, we survived another week.
We did indeed, guys. I'm gonna go eat my pizza crust first. Put some pineapples on it as well, because pineapples and pizza go together.
Ugh.
I'm going to hop on a plane and go finish eating Tom's chicken that he left all the meat on the bone. So I'll go clean that up for him.
Let me ask you a quick question, Ed. If you had any super move of any wrestler, what would it be?
Man, super move of any wrestler?
No, the signature move, I mean.
Oh, man.
Like, I just imagine myself giving you a stunner real quick when you took my chicken wing, so...
Oh, no, I got
who yours would be.
I've got to give you the Sweet 10 music because it's like fast and out of nowhere, and you can just turn around the corner, pop, then I'll just eat your chicken.
All right.
Well, I'm going with the diamond cutter, followed by DDP's diamond sign, which is also the Rockefeller sign. So that's that's hip hop for you.
Pretty sure someone got sued in that.
Throw that up. I was gonna say throw that up if you want. There'll be some lawsuits thrown.
Fair enough. All right, guys, that's it for this week of the podcast. Shouts to Eric Roberson once again, and we'll be back next week with another guest and more R&B. So you guys take care.
All right. 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 All right.